See it played, Jena, Napoleon conquers Prussia, October 9th through 16th, 1806. As Napoleon Bonaparte's army converged on Prussia, King Frederick William III divided his force, and the greater part was defeated by Marshal Louis Davout at Auerstedt. The same day, Bonaparte heavily defeated the smaller Prussian force under Prince Friedrich Ludwig of Hohenlohe, 15 miles south at Jena. The twin defeats virtually knocked Prussia out of the war. So I'm taking a look at Scenario 2, the Battle of Saalfeld, fought on October 10th, 1806. And just again to review the French victory conditions: shatter the corps of Prince Louis Ferdinand. So that's Louis Ferdinand there, and these are his troops. Or occupy either Saalfeld here, which is a town, or Schwarze, which is further north here, which looks like a village. So in the upcoming for the upcoming French operations, I think they so do they maneuver around the forces here? Maybe they do. Maybe they will use some maneuver first. As a matter of fact, they will. Instead of following the highway here and hitting the Prussians here at Garnsdorf, they might cut across here. And try to put pressure on the center there. Alright, so the French player turned command phase. Clearly they're in command here. Ooh, actually the French get reinforcements this turn, so let's figure out when they come on. Okay, so the French reinforcements, infantry and artillery here, they come on during the French onboard movement phase. They're going to come up the same highway that Lannes and his first troops followed. Okay, so command. Not going to worry about that. Clearly, the French units that are on the board are consolidated there. Okay, so then we go on to our onboard movement phase. I guess we will bring on the reinforcements first. So looking at French movement here, onboard movement. So again, Lannes in the lead with his cavalry there. What I'm noticing is these are streams, and infantry and cavalry are going to pay 1 extra movement point, but artillery, and there is no artillery up with the first wave, the first echelon here, but that second echelon that just came on as reinforcements, that does include artillery. Artillery is not permitted to cross these streams, so that'll be interesting. But we're still going to experiment with our off-road march here. So Lannes is going to take his cavalry, so it's 1, 2, and it's 3, 4 to cross the stream. And then 5. I guess I might as well occupy. What does this terrain here? Is that slope hex side? Okay. So slope hex sides, there's no combat modifier. Yeah. Slope versus crest. Well, crest doesn't have a combat modifier either. Actually, the only way to get combat modifiers is defend behind a river bridge, if I'm reading this correctly. Defend in a swamp. I don't see any swamps in this area. obviously a fortified town or city, town or village, that makes sense, woods and forest. Okay. Huh. So what's the advantage of getting behind this slope? Not sure yet. Slopes don't block line of sight either. Nothing blocks line of sight but crest hex sides. Okay, well, by the table anyways. Alright, well, they'll well, I guess going up a slope does add 1 to the movement, but movement does add a movement point, but that doesn't do much. Okay, so back here to Souchez on the road. Oh, this is where when Souchez crosses the ford there, which first of all, let's handle that. Where 9? Yep. So he is in road column. Yikes. Okay. Having crossed the ford, I think it's going to just pay the normal 1/2 for the highway there, but now it's in road column for the rest of the turn no matter what. So it's going to travel over here, but it's still considered in road column formation. So 1/2, 1.5, 2.5. Okay, so 3.5, 4.5. I think I did that right. Okay. Okay, so the question on the Prussian, we're now on the Prussian turn. The question for the Prussians is do they again stay put and defend in the terrain they already occupy, or do they move forward to try to defeat the advanced echelon before the second echelon gets up and reinforces? It's well, okay. Some of the considerations. This stream, so if these units here, for example, if these units were to move up here, and maybe these units move up there, the stream that divides them doesn't seem to matter that much. So what would this mean? So these units attacking this infantry, infantry. By the way, the infantry being in road column doesn't seem to matter much for combat purposes either that I can see so far. So what is it for these units to attack across the stream, the infantry in the clear? Nothing. No combat modifier at all. So at this scale and scope, it's just no effect. Another factor to consider, zone of influence. This infantry division does not exert a zone of influence, only cavalry does. So Lannes and his cavalry under Trelliard, they exert a zone of influence into the 6 adjacent hexes, which means that when Louis Ferdinand and his troops moved up there, they would have to stop immediately there. And in fact, they could not move again until a combat result forced their movement away, or the French moved away, or the French were eliminated. So yeah, there's that factor. So do they or don't they? Do they try to kind of pounce on Souchez? What does Louis Ferdinand have here? Especially that's offensive. So he's got some light infantry. He's got his own cavalry. He's got infantry and artillery. So maybe Louis Ferdinand does something like that. I'm going to experiment with that. So just put them back. That's the plan. Move forward and hit the first echelon. Because the defensive terrain here is what? That one is that village, which is just nothing, actually. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. All right. I think Louis Ferdinand does go forward, attack, and use his cavalry. How much cavalry does he has? He has one cavalry there. So he's going to use his cavalry to cover his flanks. Yep, and let's see how that works out. So movement-wise, I guess I can move these guys first. That's just a simple 1-2. Actually, before I do anything, I think I need to roll in the command phase. I need to roll for Louis Ferdinand's initiative. Okay, so he rolls a 1, so actually he's good. So he is free to act. Okay. 1, 2, and then yeah, I didn't want to make these quick decisions. All right, we'll send 1, 2, and then they're caught by the zone of influence. The cavalry. What is that? That's not a bridged stream right there. So that's +1 I'm seeing. So, oh, and then they would be in column. Well, we'll do that anyways. Don't want to go very far though. All right, so they cross, and I think that's 1.5, and they're in road column 2. Yeah, they'll stay there. Okay. And over here, it's going to go. Yeah, they're just going to go right up. So, well, yeah. Okay. 1, and I think that's 2, 3 up the slope. Yep. Okay. I should have remembered this from before, but back this up. So let's leave Rula there, and Louis, the cavalry there, is actually going to charge up the slope and charge lands there. So it's 1, 2, 3 up the slope, and then he has to have enough to continue into the charge tax. He easily has enough. That's only another 1. So now he's charging. So how do we do this? Okay, so he moves adjacent to an enemy combat unit. May initiate a cavalry charge. Must have sufficient movement points remaining. Okay, there are restrictions. Can't charge into forest, fortified town, or cities. May not charge across pontoon bridges. And a few others. most important, not here in this case, but most important I think for the game design is cavalry may not charge from a hex that is covered by an enemy zone of influence. And since only cavalry exert zones of influence, that means other cavalry. Okay, I think that's what that's supposed to mean. This is not a multiple unit charge. Successful charges. Okay, where's the successful charge, charge failure, inconclusive charge, charge resolution, I guess. Compare the overall morale of all charging cavalry to the averaged morale of all combat units in the charged hex. Well, we only have, I'm assuming lands doesn't count, so I think it's 4 to 4. Louis' cavalry has 4, Trelliard's cavalry has a morale of 4. So compare, this difference is the average morale. Inaveraged morale will result in either a positive or negative number. Alright, I'll resolve this. Okay, that was actually very grim. I mean, not for loss-wise, but just overall effect. They rolled a 4 on the 0 column because it's 4 morale minus 4 morale. That's an AR too. So the attacker here, they can take 2 increment losses, which would actually wipe out the cavalry because he only has a strength of 2. He can take 1 increment loss and retreat 1 hex, or retreat 2 hexes. So he's going to retreat 2 hexes, which also in this case ends his movement. He can't continue on with any movement, so he's going to basically, he was repulsed right back to where he started. And that was that. So now that's still considered part of the movement phase. So now we go to the combat phase. And we do this in 3 steps. All the artillery bombardments by French combat units are resolved. Well, I'm sorry, this is the Prussian. So artillery bombardments first, then infantry cavalry attacks, then breakthrough attacks. So I guess I'll start by putting my artillery on top. Well, now I'm trying to remember if stack order matters. Yep, there's artillery too. So, okay, so now I remember, or now I'm, getting a better idea of why I like this game so much, even though I have no particular interest in Napoleonics or the scale and scope either. Anyways, this game is not a very hard game, not a very complex game at all. It's actually fairly low, moderate complexity, straightforward, except that it has just the right number of little touches. Anyways, unfortunately, I'm not at all in a position to go into any detail on this right now, but I think with more videos of playing, it will come out. Okay, so the bombardment, what happened was I combined the horse artillery and the foot artillery here into a combined bombardment of 3 against Suchet's infantry. What's important is that this is a massed target. 9 or more strength points, in a hex, gives a -1, which is good for the firing artillery. So, I didn't realize I went right into the teeth of a 11 strength infantry division. Probably not a good idea, but hey. They did not cause any casualties. What else? There's another neat thing about if the target is adjacent to a cavalry. There's another benefit in the favor of the artillery. That is one of the little touches I'm talking about. That is, I believe, to factor in squares, even though there's no mention of squares anywhere in the rules or anything. I think that's supposed to represent, that is definitely designed for effect. That's a classic example of design for effect, to factor in the squares. Unfortunately, I left my cavalry over here. I probably should have used a cavalry unit in this attack, which means that after the bombardment and I did my normal attack, whatever the normal attack is called, I would have gotten a combined arms benefit, but I didn't do that. There's only artillery and infantry here. Okay, so nothing from the bombardment. Now I go to the regular attack. Very interesting result. So what were the factors here? The factors, the morale differential. You do have to average morales. So on the Prussian side, we have a 4, 3, and a 4. So obviously you wind up with a fraction. If I understand the rules correctly, your fraction breaks up or down according to the majority of units with that morale. So I think because 2 out of the 3 units have the 4, I think the average goes up to 4. I think that's what the rules are trying to explain, in which case the average morale for the attackers is the same as the French defenders. So there was no morale differential there. So were there any? Actually, I don't think there were. No, there were no morale modifiers. So the problem is it was a bad attack because it's only strength-wise, 5 to 11. That was a pretty bad 1 to 3. So on the 1 to 3 column with a roll of 5, we have a very interesting. This again is another little touch. So we have an exchange C, an XC result. So both sides take a 1 increment loss. 1 increment loss. And I'm going to apply the 1 increment loss to, obviously, to the Prussian infantry there. Saxon infantry, I mean. Okay, and now the C means that we recalculate the odds and reverse the rolls. The attacker becomes defender and roll again. So I think what that means is now the 10 strength, 11 minus 1, 10 strength French infantry attack. Oh, that's interesting. I guess this does mean it has to be the same type of attack. That would make sense anyways. I didn't think about that. So anyways, 10 attacking back against 4. So that's going to be a 3 to 1. Okay, I think I said 3 to 1. Obviously that should be 2 to 1. So the French attack back, they get a 4 on the 2 to 1 column, which is an exchange result. So again, but now it's not an XC, it's just an exchange. So it's another 1 increment and forces stay in place. So we're just going to up these. I still don't want to lose my light infantry, so wow, this was pretty. Exchanging losses like this was not at all good for the Prussians. Again, they stay in place.